بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and a very warm welcome to everybody. Today, inshallah, we will be looking at two letters today, inshallah, and they come from a very different articulation point that we haven't really covered before. So the two letters that we will be looking at are the letter Qaf and the letter Kaf. Now, both of these letters are being done together. They are quite different to each other. The reason we are doing two together is, again, they come from about the same articulation point. So they both come from what we say the deepest part of the tongue, or the very back of the tongue, right? We haven't seen a letter really that comes from that's makhraj is only from the back of the tongue. So the qaf and the kaf are both letters that use the deepest part of the tongue. And for both of these, where the deepest part of the tongue is going, where it is coming into contact, is what makes them both sound different to each other, amongst other things. So when we look at, if we discuss the top one first, the letter Qaf, the letter Qaf is produced by the deepest part of the tongue. But what you'll notice is when we look at the roof of the mouth, okay, now the roof of the mouth, even with your tongue or your finger, if you just touch the roof of the mouth, it feels quite hard, okay? And all that hard bit, so if this was, for example, your incisor, and then you have your roof of the mouth here, you'll notice that all of this section from the teeth, from the roots of the teeth going all the way back, is quite hard. Okay, so all the way from here to maybe about here. Okay, is and we call this the hard palate. Okay, after this section, we have a bit where it starts to go soft. Okay, it starts to, and this is right at the back, right at the back. Okay, most of it that we feel is the hard palate at the top, but right at the back we have what we call the soft palate. Okay, so you've got the hard palate and the soft palate. Now, the soft palate, which is basically also where your uvula is, when you look inside your mouth and you see the dangly bit at the back, that's called your uvula. That section there is all part of the soft palate. So you want your tongue to touch against this soft palate. Okay, and to achieve that, what you'll notice, what is happening to the back of the tongue, is it's not just going straight up, but it's kind of going diagonally backwards. So you're not just pressing straight up, you're pressing a little bit backwards too, okay, to try to get the soft palate. You want to make sure none of your tongue, no part of your tongue is touching the no part of your tongue is touching the hard palate. It has to be only the soft palate. Okay, so if we do this, then we will, with a fatha, we will notice we make the sound qa, qa. Okay, it's again, this is a heavy letter, you'll notice. So I'm not saying qa, I'm saying qa. So again, my jaw is going downwards. I'm not really spreading my lips at all. Qa, qa. Also, when I do let go, when my back of the tongue lets go of the soft palate and I move it away, I don't bring my tongue all the way down, because we've discussed about heavy letters and how for heavy letters, the back of the tongue is raised. So even though the back of the tongue moves away from the soft palate, it's no longer in contact with the soft palate, it will be it will still be high, it'll still be elevated. So the tongue will not come all the way down. Okay. If it does come all the way down, then it will sound like ah, but you want ah. Ah, again, that ah ending, the heavy ending sound, again coming from the same thing as we've discussed before, the rising or the elevation of the back of the tongue, which results in the elevation in the sound of the voice. Okay, the rising of the sound of the voice and keeping it higher up in the mouth. Okay, so we have ah, with a dhamma it is qu, and with a kasra it is qi. Qa, qu, qi, qa, qu, qi. With a with a sukoon, with the qaf, again, we retain all the qualities it already has, like the heaviness, but the qaf is one of the bouncy letters. Okay, just how we saw with the letter ba, we bounced it, we said ab. We do the same thing for the qaf, but obviously we're not using the lips this time, we're using the back of the tongue is bouncing off the soft palate. So we don't just say up and stop, we say aqo, aqo. So again, now my back of the tongue touches the soft palate, it hits it with firmness, it's quite firm, it's a firm touch. I block everything up, and then I bounce off that makhraj. Aqo, aqo. But notice I'm not saying aqo. You don't make it sound as though you're saying a fatha, making an a sound, but it's just a natural bounce off. And we don't have a very abrupt ending, so we don't say aqo, aqo. It's just aqo, aqo, aqo. It's a bounce, but it's a smooth flowing bounce, okay, with no abruptness to it. Qa, qu, qi, aqo, aqo. So again, we're keeping the heaviness, we've got the bounce. An example in the Mus'haf is, for example, when you say قَالَ فَالْحَقُّ قَالَ فَالْحَقُّ. So this is where you have the off with the fatha at the beginning and with the dhamma at the end. قَالَ فَالْحَقُّ. Now, if we now move to the kaf is in comparison to the qaf, it's a lighter letter. Okay, so we're no longer looking at a heavy letter. We're looking at a light sounding letter, the letter kaf. How do we produce this, and what is the correct articulation point of the kaf? Now we're using the same part of the tongue. So it's the deepest part of the tongue, but this time where it is touching on the roof of the mouth, it's further forward in the mouth. So remember how I drew the roof of the mouth, and I said that we have, let me just do that again. We said that you have the hard palate followed by the soft palate. And we said the hard palate is at the front. Okay. Now, where the hard and the soft meet, this is where you want to be touching for the kaf. So it's not too forward, but it's in front of the qaf. So the qaf was a further back, but the kaf is here where I have circled. This is the place where you want to touch for the kaf. So the back of the tongue comes a little bit forward, and now you'll feel that the back of the tongue, instead of going backward, it is going straight up, almost like a perpendicular. And wherever it hits, where the soft and the hard palate meet, that is where the makhraj of the kaf is. So here you'll hear a ka, ka, with a fatha, dhamma, kasra, it's ka, ku, ki, ka, ku, ki. Notice the difference between the first one, the top one, which was qa, ku, qi. And now for the ka, for the bottom one, it's ka, ku, ki, ka. Again, a little bit spreading of the lips horizontally, and vertically. With the sukun, now this kaf is not bouncing. So we don't say akka this time. Instead, this is a letter of hams. So you hear the breath. So whenever this letter has a sukoon, you stop the sound of your voice, you say ak, and then you hear it at the end. So you stop the sound of your voice first, you follow it by a little bit of the breath. Ak, ak, ka, ku, ki, ak. Okay, an example here, we have an example where we have the kaf with the dhamma and the kaf with a sukoon. So we know that the one with the sukoon, the second one, we want to hear that pattern of stopping the voice, then hearing the breath. But we don't pause. We're not going to pause and break the word. We're going to keep it in the flow of the recitation. We don't say takfu, takfu. This would be incorrect. So you don't want to pause after it. You continue with the recitation. Takfu, takfuruna, kuntum takfuruna. And then the next example is quite interesting because we've got both qafs. The first one is the one that touches the soft palate. The second one is the one that touches these, where the soft and the hard palate meet, or what we call the hard palate. So here there is a big difference because you've got a difference in where you're touching. You've got a heavy letter qaf followed by a light letter kaf. So let's hear this. خلقك خلقك قك 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 خلقك. Okay. جزاكم الله خيرا. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Inshallah, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Please do follow the link for the practice links, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.